Why, hello, people of the internet. It's GoldDemon 12 here, or Demon 12, and today we're going to be doing something special. First video of this, right? Many people call this, at least other channels, classrooms, and so that's what it's going to be today. Yeah, we're just going to be talking about Acheron, her mechanics, and how she works, right? Because Hoyoverse officially revealed it, and I will explain to you what you need to know and how this character functions. So I don't know what to call this. I'm getting a warning on my phone. Uh, Anyways, so everyone knows Acheron is a funny character, and in case you don't know, she has some quirks about her character, and I'm going to cover them in this video in case anyone needs it explained. I will obviously have to re-explain this in an official guide video, but, is what it is. We're not going to look at the story stuff, this is all about mechanics. So, starting off with her trace, Red Oni. When the battle starts, immediately gain a certain number of slash dream, and applies a certain number of Crimson Knot stacks of random enemy. So Crimson Knot is her special mechanic, right? It's for targeting on her ultimate. I don't know if that's explained in here, but just so you understand, that's the entire purpose of Crimson Knot is just a special like gimmick targeting mechanic. Okay, um, and it should be explained in here, but I'll explain it if it's not. When slash stream reaches its upper limit, for every point of slash stream that exceeds the limit, gain one stack of quad. Oh my god, quad. I'm gonna hold on. Quadivalent. Quadivalent. That is a really annoying word. Ascendance. Up to maximum number of ascendance stacks. I'm not gonna say the first one, I'm just gonna say ascendance. And then obviously it's talent, a top rain leaf hangs when this is what it's related to. So basically what this is this gonna be her ult targeting mechanic, and then you have overflow for her ultimate, right? And that's gonna be a part of another thing in her kit. But basically, if you saw the live stream, right? If a debuff is applied in whatever way, so like an enemy attacking giving a debuff, you attacking giving a debuff, right? You getting hit applying a debuff, all that stuff will give you a stack of Crimson Knots, right? And slash stream, right? So Crimson Knots a stack on the enemy that is just a targeting thing, and then her slash dream is her ult energy, right? Her own ultimate energy stacks. And you can overcap that for ascendant stacks, right? So it overcaps to 3. I don't know if it's explained in here, but regardless, you apply 9 debuffs, or 9 debuffs get applied, right? To fill up her ultimate, and you can overcap by 3. So you just use 9 to launch the ult, and then after the ult, you get those 3 overcap stacks, right? That's how that works. It's not complicated, just a bunch of wording mumbo jumbo, but basically apply debuffs up to 9 stacks. You can overcap 3 stacks, right? As a storage, like an energy storage mechanic. So yeah. The Abyss. When there are 1 to 2 Nihility characters on Acheron's, other than Acheron and the team, the damage dealt by Acheron's basic skill and ultimate increased by an additional certain amount. So in case y'all don't play Genshin Impact, the basic way for me to explain this is that in the math equation for Star Rail, and actually I'll pull this up. So in the equation for math and Star Rail, right? And it's very similar in Genshin. There's a couple of tweaks, but just so you understand, to get your damage output, you have the base damage, which is going to be whatever the talent scales off of. So it would be like percent of this stat plus the other stats in that like section of damage, right? It's not, I don't know if it's shown on here, but anyways, I'll explain it. Anyway, so the base damage is the percent stat it scales off of. So like it'd be 2000 attack, or 2000% of your attack, which is like 2000, right? So it'd be like 4k damage, right? That's what that is. And then for the crit multiplier, that's gonna be whatever crit you have, right? So you have 200 crit, you take that 4000, multiply that by the crit, right? And then you have the damage boost multiplier. So that's your damage percent stats, all that stuff. You take that, multiply that by the critted number, right? Or if it obviously didn't crit, it wouldn't be the critted number, right? And so that's how you get your damage output. That is then reduced by the attacker's other multipliers, right? So you have the weakened multiplier, so that's like attack down, stuff like that. Like I believe only Natasha and like one other character has weakened at the moment. But normally you wouldn't see that, right? That's mainly just something you apply to enemies, not to you, right? Unless there's a attack down debuff. But then, of course, from there, it gets reduced by the other defensive multipliers. So there's the defense multiplier, which at a default level is at like 50% 0.2% because of enemy level and like MOC. And then it gives the resistance multiplier, which typically it's like 20 to 40, right? Sometimes it's higher. There's the vulnerability multiplier, which is a separate thing in its own. It's just like its own unique multiplier that gets changed by like Gwenifen's Fire Kiss stacks or Welt's ultimate, something like that. And then there's the damage mitigation multiplier as well as the broken multiplier, right? Damage mitigation is like damage reduction, right? That's what that is. And then broken multiplier is a regular multiplier on broken enemies. Normally it's 90%. When they're broken, it goes to 100%, right? So when an enemy has their toughness bar up, you deal 10% less damage. Now, why is this important for me to explain this? It's because Acheron's trace in this scenario is just like New Evalette's, where it's its own separate multiplier within the calculation, right? Now, you can put it either at the very end or at the start in terms of the actual scalar of the attack. They'll get the same number, but that's basically what that is. So to understand, a lot of people are like, do you need two nihilities? Yes, you need to run her with two nihilities at E0. Now, this can change if you do like pseudo sustain welt, right? But just understand that when you don't have E2, there's basically no reason to run a Harmony in her teams for the most part, right? And that's going to sound bad for a lot of players, but it's not bad at all. Pella is on her banner, and you're going to be running Pella on her teams anyways. And Pella is also one of the best forcers in the game, just people don't understand it because they don't use her, right? But she is very, very powerful. And so, yeah, that's basically that, right? It's not too complicated, but just understand that most of Acheron's teams, if not all of them, will have two Nihility characters, as that's how you get her ultimate, right? You're going to need debuff application via your other characters for her to generate her ultimate. And as well, in terms of the damage formula, it's an additional unique multiplier, just like New Evalette and Genshin, okay? So hopefully that is explained how that works. Very reliant on her passive, right? But again, it's not a bad thing, I would say. I do know a lot of people are freaking out about team building, light cones, etc., and I'll get into that later. So, Thunder Core. When Rainblade from Acheron's ultimate hits enemy targets with Crimson Knot, her damage increases. So that's just, damage percent whenever she casts her ultimate. And so that obviously is where she gets a lot of her own damage from her buffing herself via damage percent, right? Her damage increases stacking up to a number of times, lasting for a certain amount of turns. I think it's actually permanent, but yeah, anyways, there could be Hoyoverse wording issues. Like always, classic Hoyoverse, they've got a wording issue that's very confusing. When Stygian Resurgence triggers, additionally deals damage a certain number of times. Each time each time deals lightning damage equal and is viewed as part of the ultimate damage. Okay, that's not me. That's just a weird sentence. Each time deals lightning damage equal and is viewed as part of the ultimate damage. Okay, again, shitty Hoyoverse wording aside, all this is saying is that you get damage percent for using your ultimate, and whenever you use your ultimate, there's an additional proc that happens that is also counted as ultimate damage. Why does that matter? Well, that matters because that scales off of other ultimate damage increase multipliers, right? So that's going to be other passives she has, other buffs like in blessings and other conditions that you may see in various forms of content. So moving on, there's her technique, which immediately attacks the enemy, and you gain a stack of ascendance. All right, as I explained, that is an overflow stack. So every time her technique goes off, right, in the launching into battle, you get one free overflow stack, right? You'd be like, well, GoldDemon, why is that useful if I start out with X number of stacks? Well, it's because after your first ultimate, right, you'll be able to get at least guaranteed without overcapping just an extra stack, right? It's very simple, very good for what she wants to do because, again, she'll start out with some extra stacks, right? Just as simple as that. And reduces the toughness of enemies irrespective of weakness types. So in case you don't understand what it means, reduces the toughness of irrespective of weakness types, this is basically just like Silverwolf's technique, except better, right? Because it's on an attacker that also gives her additional things. So what this is doing is it's attacking the enemy, right? It's reducing all type weakness regardless of what type it is, right? And it's giving you an overcap stack for Acheron. So this is basically just with that power creeping Silverwolf's technique, right? Very, very powerful effect. And then obviously when it's weakness broken, it will trigger lightning weakness break. And then here it is where they say the Ascendant stacks, Acheron gains 1 point slash stream, which uses her ultimate and applies 1 second Crimson Knot on the enemy. Oh, I actually should explain that. Yeah, so the overcap stacks, in case you're like, wait, but what about the Crimson Knot thing going on? The overcap stacks will just apply Crimson Knot to the highest tier enemy, right? And if it's AoE, you'll just like pick one. But it will go whenever you use your ult at the end of it, you gain those points of overcap, and then you also apply the equivalent amount of Crimson Knot. Okay. In case anybody was already confused, I know it's a lot, but again, as I said, it's just an ult targeting mechanic and how she gains her ultimate. Attacking normal enemies will instantly defeat them without needing to enter battle. Enemies who aren't hit won't consume technique points. So in case you didn't watch a live stream, you can just spam this over and over again in the open world. As long as it doesn't hit something, you can just keep spamming it, right? If it does hit something, it will obviously use the points, and this is specifically an enemy, right? And the good thing about that is that it's a movement tech, and it looks very cool. But the real important thing here is what it means by normal enemies. To better explain this is any non-elite enemies. So if you see a regular just enemy like walking around, you'll see a little mark above their head that indicates that you can one-shot them, right? Any elite enemies, so like the big enemies, you can't one-shot. That's basically how that works, right? So in Simulated Universe, if you are going into that, you could save theoretically your 99% damage thing, because if you've played any of the event modes, right, like Golden Gears, right, the first 4 fights you do reduce the enemy's health bar by 99%. You could just ignore all fights and then save those 99% decreases for a big fight or like an elite fight and just win instantly. It's very, very powerful. Again, her technique is stupid broken, but yeah, again, insanely broken technique. And in fact, there's a part that I mentioned here. So this triggers every wave, right? So it says immediately attacks the enemy, gains ascendance at the start of every wave, and deals lightning damage to all enemies. So every new wave, it will re-trigger her technique, which means you get one more stack of overflow, and it does damage to all types and just breaks them, right? And it's not like an instant break. It's going to be a certain percentage of the weakness bar, right? Probably the same as Silver Wolf, so 60. But think about that. Every wave, shing, they get sliced. So in Pure Fiction, right, you clear a wave, boom, you hit a new wave with the technique immediately because it's automatic and it happens every wave. Very powerful effect, okay? Very powerful technique. The fact that it procs every wave is huge for her personal stat gain because, again, in MOC, right, you get a new wave after you clear that first wave of enemies, and then that's one free overflow stack, right? So very beneficial for overall kit and a very, very powerful technique. Arguably the best technique in the game, just straight up, right? With Rune May coming in like near that top, right? A free auto cast skill, huge. But yeah, very, very powerful technique. Her basic attack, no one cares. It's a basic attack. And then there's her skill, right? More wall of text. So there's obviously the two related traces, the Abyss, which is her, damage one, and then Red Oni, which is her stat gain one. So here we go. When Slash Stream reaches its upper limit, the ultimate can be activated. During the ultimate, reduces enemies' toughness type regardless of the weakness, and reduces all enemies all type res. So what this does, right, is it just, again, allows her to kind of be like Shui He, right, and just reduce the toughness regardless of what type you are. Again, a very good defensive mechanic because reducing enemies' toughness is going to break the enemy, allow you to do more damage, right? And it's going to delay their, attacks. And there's another thing is some of the new enemies, right? They don't take more, so they take less damage when they're up, right? The crystal enemies, when they have their weakness bar still up, they take even less damage than normal, right? They've got an additional damage reduction multiplier. But then when they get broken, they take more damage from another unique multiplier, right? So her allowing to break all, toughness types is good across the game because it gives her an additional utility in terms of, damage and survivability, right? Very, very good effect. And then obviously all type res is just increasing your damage, right, during the ultimate. So very good. Last until the end of the ultimate. When any unit inflicts a debuff on the target while using their ability, Acheron gains 1 point of Slash Stream and inflicts 1 Crimson Knot. If debuffs are inflicted on multiple targets, then 1 stack of Crimson Knot will be inflicted on the enemy with the most Crimson Knot stacks. This effect can only trigger once per ability usage. Okay, so again, there's going to be a bit of a wording issue here, but that's for the most part very correct, right? If a debuff is applied via an action, okay, you will get a stack. You can get 1 stack per action. All right. So where does this fall slightly short? So this works in all scenarios, right? This works if you get hit, apply debuff. If the enemy hits something, applies a debuff. If you hit something, applies a debuff. If your ultimate does, if a follow-up does, right? Every single thing you could probably think of works. So if you're wondering about a specific light cone, right? Trend to universal market, right? I'm going to pull that up right here. I've explained this in other videos, but light cones like Trend of Universal Market do actually work with Acheron. So if you run a preservation with her, right, you want to run this light cone if you've got it, right? This will allow you to get extra ultimate stacks, especially if you've got, what is it? Like Japard are the MC on the team, and you can force triggers to happen. Very, very powerful effect for getting her ultimate, and this will significantly change her ultimate rotations, allowing you to potentially 1-turn ultimate via this light cone and other light cone effects. And another important light cone to actually point out is going to be where is it? This one, Resolution Shines of Pearls of Sweat. Now this gets into another discussion about her being a light cone limited with her teams. I'm gonna, again, I said I'll talk about that later in the video, but basically you're gonna want this light cone as well for your supports on the team, right? And if you are an old enough player, you're gonna also want to use before the tutorial mission starts. But all of this is very important because this allows her to gain more stacks because you get more actions off, right? So you getting hit or you hitting the enemy, right? All that stuff, right? That's basically what you're gonna want to do as much as possible for her to get her ultimate and do a bunch of damage. When Acheron is on the battlefield, when the enemy target leaves or any unit is defeated, with their Crimson Knot stacks will be transferred to the enemy target with the most Crimson Knot stacks left on the battlefield. Okay, I think I said that wrong, but basically if the target dies with Crimson Knot, it'll just transfer to a new target with the most. Okay, so like if there's one dude with a certain amount of stacks here, so they've got like 3, other dude has 6, the dude with 3 dies, the dude with 6 gets 9, right? It just moves targets. And as I said before, it's just an ult targeting mechanic, okay? It's not actually, that's one thing to keep important. Crimson Knot itself is not a debuff. Just keep that in mind. I know it's weird, but it's not. However, that's doing some funny stuff there. But I think the reason they made it not a debuff is for her own stat gain, so she doesn't like, get 3 stacks in 1 turn from her applying, multiple debuffs or something like that, right? I think that's the reason why they made it not a debuff, but yeah. Oh wait, that was her ultimate. Oh no, that's her talent. My bad. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. This character is pretty like complex in terms of her kit and synergies. Octobolt Flash. Yeah, Octobolt Flash gains 1 point slash stream and inflicts 1 Crimson Knot, and it deals lightning damage, right? So that's just her skill, which is like a miniature ultimate animation. And then her ultimate, Slash Dream Cries in Red. It delivers 3 Rain Blades and 1 Stygian Resurgence in succession. Enemies cannot be inflicted with Crimson Knot while the ultimate is active, right? So what this is, you see it right here activating. You get 3 single target focus attacks that explode the Crimson Knots on the enemy, and then you do an AoE attack. So you see 1 slash, 2 slash, 3 slash, AoE slash, and then all stacks are gone, right? All of the Crimson Knot are gone. So Rain Blade deals lightning damage to a single enemy and removes up to 3 stacks of Crimson Knot from the target. When Crimson Knot is removed, deals lightning damage to all enemies with an additional multiplier that is increased for every Crimson Knot removed. The damage multiplier has a maximum limit. So basically, as said here, right, you do 3 single target Rain Blades. Each one will explode 3 Crimson Knots, and that's how you get the number 9, right? Because you do 3 times 3, right? So it's 3 single target attacks that additionally do 3 AoE attacks from exploding the Crimson Knots, right? So you hit it once, right? -3, hit it again, -3, hit it again, -3, and then you do the AoE attack, Stygian Resurgence, right? Which deals lightning damage and removes all Crimson Knots. So you're wondering, it's like, wait, but I thought there was only 9 Crimson Knots. This would be in the case of a Crimson Knot being on like some side enemy that you didn't target. So like you do your 3 attacks because one dude had like 8 Crimson Knots, the dude had a, 1 on him, so it was like 8 and 1. It would just remove the other one, and you'll deal the same amount of damage, right? So that's basically that. Again, I know it's a lot of word vomit, but as I've been saying, it's just a funny ult targeting mechanic that you use to, again, uh, hit your 3 different rain blades on, and that just do the AoE damage, right? So yeah, hopefully this helps explain it to you guys, like how she works. Again, I know there's a whole lot of yapping, and I'm gonna have to condense this down for like a guide video, but yeah, this character is very interesting in how she functions, right? She's got a lot going on here in terms of team synergy and her actual, abilities. And there's a couple other things like the Emanator thing, but that's not going to be for this video. I'm going to quickly talk about the light cone here and how it works with her. So her light cone gives her crit damage, and then whenever a wearer attacks an enemy, so this is any person who has the light cone on, right? You inflict empty bubbles. This effect can be triggered 1 time against each target for every attack the wearer launches, right? So this specific wording, right? You can see there's no turn restriction on it like some other light cones, for example. Again, I'm going to use the Luca light cone as an example. It says if they are not already ensnared. So there's no turn restriction, meaning every attack you do can apply the debuff, and it's also just application. So this means you don't need effect hit rate. It's a fixed chance, right? So every attack you do can apply this debuff, which what that means is that if you look at her skill actually, right, that gives you 1 stack. This is how she gets 2 stacks per attack, right? You use the skill with the light cone, and she will now give herself 2 stacks per attack, right? Very, very helpful for getting her ultimate up, right? So the light cone has a huge impact on her overall rotation, but it's again not necessary because of light cones like pearls and the trendy universal market that can help with your stat gain, all right? So if you're wondering, it's like, oh, why is the light cone not necessary? It's going to be a team building issue. Obviously, the light cone has a very significant damage bump, being 20 to 30%, right? And it's, higher than a lot of other signature light cones, but that doesn't mean the character doesn't function without her light cone, right? She'll still function without her light cone. You'll just obviously have to have investment in other places. And as again, I don't think that's very much of an issue for any longer term players. Now, newer players might have an issue, like as I said earlier, with not having those specific light cones. So a newer player probably won't have the Luca light cone or Trinity Universal Market, which is part of the reason why I want to trend on this banner, but unfortunately it's not. And the same goes for her actual 4-star weapons. Good Night Sleep Well is going to be her best like 4-star option. But fortunately, it is actually on the weapon banner. So if you even just dabble in the weapon banner a little bit, you'll get like her best 4-star option. So there is that. And then obviously, Empty Bubble, they take 20% more damage from the wearer, and their ultimate does 24% more damage. So yeah. Again, Light Cone is a very significant upgrade for overall kit. If you are wondering, do I go for E1 or Light Cone or E2 or Light Cone? The answer is get her, then get her Light Cone, and then go for E2. E1 on its own is not a significant upgrade, but if you're trying to build up to the E2, obviously that's fair to grab. So yeah, again, Light Cone is very impactful, and there are a couple of key Light Cones like Trend, Pearls, and Silver Wolf Light Cone, right? Incandescent Rain, that will help in terms of debuff application. And actually, you can use Kafka's Light Cone on another character like Black Swan and like Black Swan E1 to also get a stack. Now, Black Swan applies to her own stacks, but like, let's say you, for whatever reason, have Kafka's Light Cone and your Gweniphen doesn't have, like tutorial, or you don't have pearls, right, to like run on one of the other characters. You could just use Kafka's Light Cone on them and get another, debuff stack, right? Would I recommend that? No, not really, but you could do that, just as an example. I believe there's 4 light cones. So it's this one, Incandescent Rain, Pearls, Kafka's, yeah, it's those 3. Yeah, Kafka's, and then Trinity Universe Market. So yeah, look out for any light cones that apply debuffs for your team. That might be very beneficial to how Acheron wants to run. But yeah, if you guys have any of those light cones, then you will have a better time actually running this character. So yeah, I believe that's everything I need to cover. If you guys have any questions about how she functions or anything else down below, feel free to ask. But I've been GoldDemon and I need to get out of here, so I'm not late, right? So yeah, see you guys next time. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check me out on Twitch.